The accessories in Windows 8 are a little different from the apps in that they have a more traditional look and feel, and they've been around for several versions. But they're still useful, and I reach for some of them several times a day. I'll show you the accessories you're most likely to use, starting with the calculator.
The accessories I want to show you in this chapter are not on this main initial part of the start screen. They're on the secondary start screen. So I'll put my mouse pointer anywhere on the background here. I'll click the right mouse button, and from the little taskbar here, I'll click All Apps. And I'm going to scroll to the right. I'm just using the scroll wheel on the mouse. You can use the scroll bar here on bottom. If you're on a tablet, you can use your finger to swipe around. Now, I said that these accessories are not on the main part of the start screen, but they can be if you want. This is something that we covered in the first chapter of this course. Let's say the calculator here is just the first one. I can right-click it, and then down here I can click Pin to Start. If you want, you could also pin it to the taskbar. That'll pin it to the taskbar when you're on the desktop. Since we covered all this already in the course, I'm not going to go through it again. But I do want to show you two ways of starting up the calculator. And in fact, some of these accessories, I find that there are some handy shortcuts to start them up. So let's start with the calculator. I'll just click that. Starts up the calculator. It's a pretty basic calculator, but let me close it for just a second, because here's the other way that you can bring it up. And this is whether I'm on the desktop or on the start screen. I want to get the Run dialog box. Run begins with the letter R, so on the keyboard I'm going to press Windows key R. And there's the Run dialog, and I'm going to type the word calc. And since my fingers are already on the keyboard, rather than grabbing the mouse and clicking OK, I'll just press the Enter key. And that also brings up the calculator. I find I do that, I don't know how many times a day. So let's take a look. This is kind of a basic calculator. Now you can tap out the numbers here, like 65 times 3, click equals, and that's fine. But I find it's easier to use the numeric keypad on the right side of the keyboard. So I'm just going to press the Escape key to clear that. And now just notice my mouse pointer is over here on the desktop, so I can do whatever it is. 32, use the asterisk to multiply, times 8, and now I'll press the Enter key to get the equal sign. One thing you'll find is that by default, the calculator doesn't give you commas to separate thousands. So if I do something like take that number and multiply it by some large number there, it might not be so easy to see. So what you could do is go up to the View menu, choose Digit Grouping, and hey, look at that. Now you actually have commas. But there's more to this calculator than initially meets the eye. Let's take a look. I'll go up to the View menu here. And you see right now we're looking at the plain old standard calculator. I want to show you a few others. Scientific Programmer and Statistics. They have some keyboard shortcuts. I'm not going to bother with those. Let's go to Scientific. So here, let's say maybe I want to get a square of a number. I'll just type in whatever, some number here, and I can square it. I can take a number and I can cube it. It's a pretty big number. I'll clear it by pressing the Escape key. And you see we have some trigonometric functions. So maybe I have a 30-degree angle and I want to find the cosine. There's the cosine. Or maybe, let me clear that, I'll press the Escape key. I want to find out, let's say, what's the factorial of 9. Click 9 and there's my factorial. And logarithms and modulus and whatnot. Also, since I was doing some trigonometry, if you want, you can measure in radians or gradients as well. Let's go up and look at the Programmer calculator. Now, if you really have some burning desire to program in assembly code, feel free. You can do in hexadecimal, decimal, octet, binary. Yeah, have a lot of fun. If this is something you need, you know it a lot better than I do, so let's move on. I'll go up to the View menu and go to Statistics. And because statistics works a little differently than regular math, you're always working on groups of numbers, on data sets of numbers. And you notice up here you have a little up and a down arrow. Those are to move numbers up and down through the stack. And the key here is this Add button down there. So let's say, for example, I want to get a sum of a bunch of numbers. I'll just type in, let's say 10. Now I can press Add 11. I can press Add, but I find it's going to be a lot easier if I just type a number in and then press the Enter key. Now, once I have these numbers, I've got this data set. And if I want to move up and down through the data set, that's where I can use the up and down arrows. So let's say I want to get just a sum of the numbers. I can click on the sum of x. If I want to get a sum of the squares, I can click on the sum of the squares. Now here's what this up and down arrow are all about. Since you're working with data sets, you might decide at some point, oh gee, that's really not the number I want. I really don't want that to be 14. I really want that to be 16. You don't have to redo it all over again. I can simply go up to the Edit menu, go to Data Set, and edit. By the way, you see the shortcut is F2. That's a standard all over Windows, is that when you have something selected, very often pressing the F2 on the keyboard will let you edit it, like file names, and we talked about that earlier in this course. So I'll just choose that. So you see that 14 is now open for editing. I'll say, okay, that's 16, press enter. But you notice that the result doesn't change. I still have to go back and say, oh yeah, now I want the sum of the x squares now that that's changed. And you can see we have the new answer. But wait, there's more. We could do some kind of spreadsheety type of things. That's a technical term, spreadsheety things with a calculator. I'll go up to the View menu, and you see down over here we have some worksheets. Now let's choose mortgage. So let's say you're thinking of buying a house, and you just want maybe a thumbnail of what your monthly mortgage payments are going to be. So let's go over here. Let's say purchase price, and I'll say what are houses these days? 200,000. And I'll just press the tab key over here. Let's say a down payment of 50,000. Notice, by the way, it doesn't put in the commas. And let's say I'll get a 30-year mortgage. Notice that's the number of years, not the number of months. And let's say maybe I can get a 4.5% interest rate. Click calculate. So I know that every month I'm going to pay about $760. Let's take a look at some others. Go back to the View menu, back to Worksheets. And let's say fuel economy. So let's say I'm going to go back up to Vermont, and it's going to be a 250-mile trip, and I'm going to use about 8 gallons of gas. Click calculate. And so I'm going to get about 31 miles to the gallon. Let's take a look at some conversions. Go up to the View menu, and I can do unit conversions. This is really great. See all these different units that you can convert. So I'll do an easy one. Let's say temperature. And it's a nice fall day today, about 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's make sure that's degrees Fahrenheit. So you could do Celsius, Fahrenheit, or Kelvin. So I'm going to put in 60 degrees, and there it calculates as about 15.5 degrees Celsius. If for whatever reason I really do want to know what the temperature is in Kelvin, there we go. Or distance. I'll go over here and choose length. And let's say I've got something that's maybe, I don't know, 150 inches, and I want to know how many meters that is. There we go. So I know 150 inches is 3.81 meters. And by the way, you notice there is no submit button or OK button. It just calculates on the fly. Let's go back here and we'll do date calculation. And a standard thing is difference between two dates. So I'll click the down arrow and I see today is October 16th. I want to know how many days are left in the year. So I'll click the down arrow there and I'll click this little forward button to December 31st. And I'll click calculate. And it tells me 2 months, 2 weeks, and 1 day, 76 days. You might be wondering, well, wait, how many shopping days left till Christmas? Well, I have absolutely no idea because the calculator isn't going to give me that answer. You'd simply have to take that 76 days, and I guess Thanksgiving is the only day that's not a shopping day, so maybe it's calculate from there. So the calculator is a really great feature, and remember, the easiest way to bring it up, I think, is press Windows key R and type calc.